I did an interview last week before the show with Brian Lilly. We were looking at this study done by the Privy Council. So it's the government's own study. And they were studying crime fears of people in the GTA, which is kind of weird. I mean, there is a lot of rising crime and violence there and home invasions and everything else. But of course, it's Liberal Canada, right? You got 49 ridings there that the Liberals won in the last campaign. So this study showed that the feelings towards fear of crime are worsening as the crime continues. And a growing number of individuals feel compelled to legally obtain a firearm because they want it for self-defense, which is kind of crazy because this is the most anti-gun government in history, based out of Toronto, more or less, right? That's who elects them. And their own citizens in their own ridings now want to get armed up. And when I was talking to Brian, I was telling him I'm a member of a bunch of different Facebook groups. I think we all are, all kinds of different interests. And I'm in a group called the Ottawa Moms Group. And it's, just a group of moms, and there's all kinds of stuff in there, recipes, school lunch ideas, where's the best place to get soccer cleats, stuff like that. And there was a post in there last week from a mom who feels that with the rising crime and violence and the way the world is going, she wanted to know how to get a gun. And I thought, I saw the post, I posted National Range Day in there before and they've deleted it. So I saw the post and I couldn't believe it was still up. So I went and I scanned through the comments, and almost every single one of the 40 or 50 comments in there were other urban moms, urban soccer moms who agree, and they all want to get armed up. And it just shows you how far we've come from a situation where you guys are voting for the government that has resulted in all this rising crime and violence. And now you're like, hey, I need to get a gun to protect myself. So just a really interesting conversation from the people you'd expect it from the least,
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first reaction to a lot of people would be like, well, now you want to come over to our side kind of thing. Like, where were you when all this other stuff was going on? But on the contrary, I'm glad that this conversation is happening. The situation in Canada, we've talked about it before, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. But the situation in Canada is just, it's so bizarre. It is just, it's otherworldly, where you have 40 years of just emotionally hammering on Canadians to reject the idea that they can have some part to play if someone wants to take their lives or their things or abuse them, and that they have some role to play to stop people from doing that, from harming their kids or invading their home or worse. And now it's like, well, it has to come to your house. It has to come to your neighborhood for you to be like, oh yeah, maybe I was wrong this whole time. And one of the things that I forget, there was a bit of an exchange on X. Someone was making commentary on firearms for self-defense, and how people more to the left of the political spectrum are just like, how could you say such a thing? And so there was some criticism of that. And it's like, you know what? That's not the bad part. That's not the worst part. The worst part is that people like that, it's not that they don't want to buy a gun to defend themselves, or they reject the idea of defending themselves. They want to use the physical force of government to prevent you from doing it.
Yeah.
And that's the part that, for me, that's the part that can drive me quite wild. They want to stop you from doing it so that they can feel better about themselves. They can feel superior, morally superior somehow. So they would rather see you as a victim, you lose your life, you be physically assaulted, have your things taken, your children harmed, so that they can sit back and say, well, that's not Canadian, we're not Americans, or whatever the stupidity is, right? But it's just very interesting to me. Until it comes to you and you experience reality, God forbid, now all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a minute. Okay, maybe that's just not some weird talking point from, it's just interesting to me. It's like people need to be hit over the head. They have to experience these things in order for them to even grasp it. I would just think that, humans, being animals that have quite vivid imaginations, can just imagine those things, figure out what's reasonable, and then form a reasonable opinion from that.
The situation and the conversation is becoming far more mainstream than I ever imagined it would. So,
yeah. And it needs to.
Yeah, it does.
You have an inherent human right to fight for your life if someone is trying to take it from you, in all circumstances.
Yeah.
And I mean all of them. But anyway, that's just
very basic.
Yeah, that's part of my sort of belief system. But as you know, I'm a right-wing radical, apparently. Lecture's over. Thank you for listening to that. It's really important. I don't want to lose again, man. We only can do so much over here. It's your guys' time to shine. It's your guys' time to take that 1, 2 hours of effort, 3 hours, 4 hours of effort. If you got to drive someplace or whatever, stand in line to make this happen. We got to do it. It's do or die now. So thanks very much, everyone, for listening. Thanks so much for your support. Take care. We'll see you in the next one.